What's up, everybody? Thank you so much for listening to the podcast. I wanted to put this in the beginning. Of course, we are coming to you live from Gotham Production Studios, which is our home here for X Drinking Buddy. Remember to subscribe on Patreon, patreon.com/Brennan Tassif. You can also follow on social media at X Drinking Buddy on Instagram, Twitter, and follow me at Brennan T Comedy on all social media. Check out BrennanTComedy.com for the upcoming shows. And don't forget to get your X Drinking Buddy merch. I hope you enjoyed the episode. Boom. That's it. Easy peasy.
Grab me a beer and grab me a coke. We about to sit for an hour, bullshit and tell jokes. And please don't mix it up, cause he done sobered up. Brennan T Comedy on your social media feeds. And Brennan Tassif is your ex drinking buddy. Brennan Tassif is your ex drinking buddy. Brennan Tassif is your ex drinking buddy. Brennan Tassif is your ex drinking buddy.
What's up, everybody? Welcome into another edition of Brennan Tassif is your X Drinking Buddy. I am your host, Brennan Tassif. If you're new to the program, quick rundown of the show. I used to be everyone's favorite drinking buddy. It was my favorite thing to do. Hang out with friends, get drunk, do drugs, get in all sorts of trouble, and then reminisce about those crazy stories. I am sober now, but it's still one of my favorite things to do. Hang out with someone and reminisce about the crazy old days. Most weeks I'll be joined by a guest. This week is no exception. All the way from New York City, Zach McGovern.
That's right, baby. We're here.
What's up, dude?
How you doing, man?
Good. How
Thanks
are
for
you?
having me. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thanks for coming on.
Everyone knows that I still drink and do drugs. Right?
Yes,
Okay?
very much so.
Okay.
That is not a
I still
disqualifier
drink.
for the show.
Anyone who watches the show, listens to the show, wants to drink or do drugs with me, hit me up on Instagram at Zach McGovern.
I was going to say, plug everything right now at
Yeah.
Zach McGovern. And then do you have website, shows? What's going on?
Right, I'm building a website right now. I thought websites were like a thing of the past, but I guess they're still.
It's so weird because depending on who you're talking to.
Yeah.
Because for the longest time, I didn't have a website because it was like my social media is basically my website. Like if you need tickets or anything, just go there.
Exactly.
And then I ran into like some, as they say in Succession, some serious people.
Mm-hmm.
And they were like, what's your website? And I was like, I don't have, I was like, Instagram.com/Brennan T Comedy. And they go, you need a website. And I was like, God,
why?
damn it.
It's just another thing I got to take care of.
It's so, and I, like on my website, I have upcoming shows.
Yeah.
And a friend of mine who's an actress, she was like, oh, you have to like, because what's going to happen is agents and managers will find you without you ever knowing. Yeah. And they'll check your website. So make sure you keep, maybe even throwing a couple of fake dates in there. Like make sure it looks like you've got stuff going on.
Then what if they go to a fake date?
But my whole problem is like, I'm not even, like I don't even put things in there.
Yeah.
Because like I promote all my shows on Instagram.
Yeah, it's like it's just another, like I said, I mean, I know this sounds stupid bitching about it because it's like, well, dude, you're a comedian, do your job. But like, you got to do Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, like Snapchat now. I heard it's coming back yesterday. Like,
No way. No, I'm not doing
back,
it.
dude. My buddy, I just did a podcast yesterday with my buddy, very funny dude, Gilo Gallerati. Shout out to him, his podcast, Oops. And he was saying Snapchat's like coming back and like, he knows a guy that's making $30,000 a month just from posting stories. I don't want it to come back. Well, and it's also interesting too when people are like, do your job. It's like my job is to stand on stage and evoke a human reaction. Yeah. My job is not to be editor, director, story, reel cut guy. But
graphic designer.
It is.
It is though.
It is.
So I had a long conversation when Derek Gaines was on the show about this because Derek's not a big he's not a big internet, like social media guy. And he was like, I just want to go up and make people laugh. Like this is all, but like he's obviously talented enough and far enough along to where it doesn't like he can say that. But if I say that, people are like, okay, have fun at the open mics, asshole.
Yeah, it's like you got at certain level, you have to do everything for yourself. And then when you get to a certain level, then all you have to do is to stand up and show up and do the videos.
Because then other people will film it and other people will cut it.
You got the editor, you got the AV, you got all that stuff. You got your manager booking, all that stuff.
Yeah, it's weird. I know people who are at my level, if not a little above. Some of them have been on this show and they'll be like, I'll be like, how did you get, like they'll like post on their stories of like all these dates. And I'm like, that's a lot of dates. Yeah. Like what's going on? And they go, oh, I got a manager. And I'm like, we were just at the same open mic like 2 days ago. Like, what are you talking
who's
about?
This manager, your mom?
But
like, come on, what are we doing here?
But it's true. Like, certain people find certain people, friends of friends. Yeah. Like I just released the one man show that's out now on YouTube.
What's it called?
X Drinking Buddy.
Just okay, like same thing. I just want to make sure you're plugging.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Make sure you guys get all the information necessary. Okay.
A comic's tale of what? No, it's very powerful stuff. But a friend, I just put it up, and then I reached out to a buddy of mine who's an actor who helped me like help with the production. So I gave him a producer credit. And these fucking actors, they want it. They fiend for that IMDb credit. They love it.
They want it.
So I texted him. I go, hey, man, here's a screenshot just so you know you now have a producer credit on IMDb, which didn't have. I gave him his first producer credit.
Nice.
And he was like, dude, thank you so much. He was so grateful. And it was cool because I was grateful for his help. But then he's like, he's like, is the show out? And I go, yeah, I just released it. And he goes, I'm going to send it to like my manager and my agent and stuff. And I'm like, but that's how it's like I'm fucking nobody.
Yeah, but it hurts more when they say they're going to send it and then they do send it and then you hear nothing. You shouldn't have sent it in the first place.
Yeah, just don't even only say it. Be like, hey, I sent it and they love it. They want to meet it.
Yeah, exactly.
Don't even.
But then unfortunately the manager died. The agent's building burned down. They really wanted to meet you.
It was a whole thing, man.
Yeah, you were that close, buddy. Keep plugging away.
So Instagram, you said Instagram.com/Zach McGovern.
At Zach McGovern on Instagram, at Zach-McGovern. Or I'm sorry, at Zach_McGovern on TikTok. Clearly I use it a whole bunch. At Zach McGovern on YouTube. It will be ZachMcGovern.com when I get a website going, so check back in 2026.
Well, dude, I'm glad you came on the show.
Yeah, thanks, man.
We met through a good friend of the show, Matt Fulcher, The Full Charge.
The Full Charge, super, super funny dude.
Yes.
I've been seeing him since I started comedy, and I've always been like, that dude is fucking hilarious.
It's one of those things where it was very surreal. And, of course, you know this, just living in the city. I have his Comedy Central Presents. I bought it.
Yeah,
like
crazy
years before I met him. And I heard of him. So the listeners know this, but I heard him on Your Mom's House back in like 2010 or 12 or something like that. And then I started listening when him and Ryan Sickler started doing the Crab Feast. And I just became a fan of the Full Charge. And this is 12 years ago.
This is like way before you even moved to New York.
Oh, yeah. I've only been in New York for a few years. And so I started doing comedy in 2009. I got into podcasting in like 10, 11, 12. And so I've always just been a fan of his from a distance. I subscribed on Patreon to the Full Charge Power Hour. And then during the pandemic, I reached out and I was like, this probably won't happen. But I was like, hey, do you want to come on my podcast? Because I started this one during the pandemic.
Oh, nice.
I had the idea forever, but then I was just like, during the pandemic.
Fuck it, let's do it.
Yeah, I was like, fuck it. And he was like, sure.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And
he's such a cool dude, too.
Well, and to be a kid from Florida who's like doing comedy, but it's like bar shows and like you get on like the Comedy Zone every once or whatever it is. To have someone with like that I'm a fan of, genuinely a fan of,
me too,
who has like credits, like legit credits, be like, yeah, of course, dude. I was running around my house like, oh my god,
that's so sick though.
And then I moved to New York. Him and I we become friends after the podcast. And then when I moved to New York, we become even closer friends. And then we start doing a podcast together. And it's one of those things where it's just like, I can be self-deprecating all I want, but then at the end of the day, like my cousin's like, dude, I have a signed set list from him from a show he did in Oklahoma because I'm such a fan. And you host a podcast. Like, shut the fuck up about
cool, right?
Oh, it's so hard. He's like, shut up.
Yeah.
So he had a get together. What was that? It was for...
it was his birthday, wasn't it?
Yeah. Birthday. And I met you and Danny.
Yeah.
And I was like, dude, we got to get you on the podcast.
And here we are, finally.
And here we are. We're going to get Danny on here next.
He would definitely do it.
Yeah.
I just did the podcast with him yesterday. So he's available during the days, too. You just have to schedule him out.
You're like, yeah, so if he lies and says he's busy, he's a liar.
That's true. He might do it. He might be like, dude, I work during the day, dude. I can't.
There's some bigger comics that I've met through Matt, and he's like friends with, like pretty close with. And I was like, oh, I wonder if they do my podcast. And just like what just happened now. He's like, yeah, of course they would.
Yeah.
Like, because he's known them from when they were open micers. He's like, of course they would. And then I've reached out to them and they're like, yeah,
and they just don't want to fucking do it.
Yeah, they just don't, because who am I? I'm nobody.
Yeah. I mean, but also like, not that you're not anybody, but if you're a high level comedian, you're probably getting hit up all the time to do people's podcasts.
Yeah.
All the time to come on a show. It's just like, how much time do you have? You know
yeah, exactly.
Why am I defending them? Fuck those guys.
Yeah. Well, the funny thing is the flip side's true for me. Like, I meet people at open mics and stuff, and I don't know if it's because I'm older or it's because I've been doing comedy for so long, but I still do open mics because I just love being on stage.
Yeah.
But like some of the younger people who will be like, hey, like if you ever need someone to come on your podcast, and you know me, I'm like, yeah, let's do it. And then they come on and I'm like, so how long have you been doing comedy? And they're like, oh, I just started. And I'm like, oh.
That's not what are we talking
cool.
about?
Yeah, it's like, cool.
Yeah, but also like, you know, everybody has to start somewhere, but then that you have to start thinking about the business side of it, which is like, where do you want your podcast to be considered? You know what I mean? Like, okay, this guy's he's got Fultron for one episode, but then he's got a guy who's doing his second open mic in the next episode. Like, what are we doing here?
Well, and that's the other thing too, is like the inconsistency with that kind of stuff. So I try to, this is my new thing that I've been doing the last couple of years. If I see someone, whether it's at an open mic or at a show, if I see someone and they genuinely like, they make me laugh and I'm like, oh, this is hilarious, I don't give a shit how long, like you can come on.
That's true.
And then that's kind of been my barometer, because I've had people on who have a huge following, and I won't say names, but like they're like not in the comedy world. And it was like, what do we do? Like,
boring.
Yeah. Well, not even boring. It was just one of those things where it's like, oh, you did this because you gained your notoriety from something else, and now you want to get into the comedy scene.
And so now
you're trying, so now you're just trying to do everything comedy, which is fine. But at the same time, I'm like, we're not the same.
Yeah,
like
it's a different animal.
Yeah, it's just.
And I should say to your point about what you're saying, if someone makes you laugh, your podcast isn't about the business of stand-up, so I guess it doesn't really matter if it's...
And everyone's got drinking stories.
That's what I'm saying. Drinking, drugs, sex, all those... Everyone has those stories, so I stand corrected. Like, if it's an open micer versus, like, a big headliner like Fultron, like, I guess it shouldn't matter.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? As long as they have great, funny stories, fuck it, let's go.
Well, that's the thing, too, is I've had people on who are professional comedians.
Yeah.
And it's like pulling teeth.
Yeah.
And I'm like, you do this for a living.
I know, but a lot of comedians, like even the podcasting world is different to them than being on stage.
Yeah.
Like, they're great
that's
on
what
stage,
I've noticed
their
doing
personality
this.
is like, you're a fucking dud.
Because they're super introverted.
Yeah.
And the only time they come out of their shell is when they're on stage. And then when they get off stage, they're kind of like back to that introverted
and a
thing.
one-on-one is harder than a 1 on 100.
Yeah.
You know?
And I tell people that all the time. People go, I could never do public speaking. And I go, well, it's different. Like, you're talking to the room.
Yeah.
Like, I'm basically talking to the lights.
Exactly.
Like, nobody in here fucking matters.
No.
Like,
well, that's really nice of you to say.
But you know what I mean? Like, you feel the same. When you're on stage, you have your set.
Yeah.
And, like, the people in the front row you'll, like, interact with and stuff. But for the most part, it's not, like, I don't feel it. I think I would be remiss to say that if I was in a room and it was fully lit and I was, like, giving a speech on something, you know, then like the one-man show was hard.
Yeah.
Because it's like, oh, this doesn't have to be funny, but also I don't want people to be bored.
Well, a one-man show has to have a through line.
Yeah.
Whereas I would say a good hour of comedy has some sort of through line to it, but it doesn't necessarily have to have that through line like a one-man show for sure does.
Yeah, and that was the thing was like, that was more challenging than stand-up.
For sure.
Which people are, sometimes they get confused. They go, you had a script, like you knew what you were going to say. It's like, yeah, but as a person who's on stage, you can sense like, oh, this is going poorly.
Yeah.
Or like, this was a huge mistake.
Especially as a stand-up.
Yeah.
You can sense those moments.
Yeah, when you're like, uh-oh.
All right, well, giving some people their money back.
Well, let's talk about it. Because I bring this up on every episode, but stand-up comedy obviously is incredibly niche.
You want to do dates real quick? And then...
Just
plug it out?
Plug it.
Because this Patreon comes out tomorrow.
Yes. Friday.
January
and then
26th. Then the episode itself comes out Monday.
Yeah.
January, what's that, 31st?
Yeah.
Okay, so I'll be in Florida tomorrow.
29th.
Okay, I'll be in Key West this weekend. This will already be passed.
Oh, are you doing
Comedy Key West?
Yeah.
And then I come back to Fort Lauderdale. I'm doing a couple bar shows and trying to do one at the Downey Beach Improv. Then February 1st, Thursday, I'm at the Miami Improv. Then Friday, Saturday, I'm at a new comedy club called Sad Man Comedy Cafe, which you should hit up if you're ever down in Florida.
Yeah,
very
I'm from
new.
Florida.
It's only been up obviously. It's only been open like a month. It's run by these awesome dudes, David Sadman and Nadeem Awad, super funny Florida comedians.
Yeah.
So I'll be there February 2nd and 3rd. And then February 9th through 11th, I'm in Vancouver at the Roxy.
Jesus Christ, man, you're all over.
And then LA that week. And then February 15th, I'm at Zany's. February 16th, I'm watching Giulio Gallerati do his taping at the Den in Chicago. If you guys want to check out a special taping, go there. And then February 17th, I'll be doing a show at Recess in Chicago, and then the rest of the month in New York.
Damn.
We're doing it.
We're doing it.
Fuck yeah. Now let's talk about drugs.
What does Mark say? Comedy.
Yeah.
God, congrats to you, man.
Thanks, man. Yeah, this is so far a good year. You just got to kind of keep the ball rolling. And I didn't really have any like goals for 2024 other than just do stand up and book more shows and get on the road. So I guess those are goals.
Those are definitely goals.
Yeah.
As someone who does like 3 or 4 shows a month and
yeah.
would love to be doing like 3 or 4 shows a night.
Yeah.
Those are definitely goals.
Yeah, you're right. Anyway, okay, so now.
No, I I talked to Jared Waters about this when he was on the show, because I was like, dude, you work all the time. Mm. And he was like, yeah, well, when I first got here, I couldn't fucking pay for time. Like it was so hard. He was like, so I just kept grinding and then just never looked up and just kept going. And the next thing you know, I'm doing, 3 or 4 spots a week at clubs. And then it's 2 or 3 spots a night. Then it's 3 or 4 spots a night. Yep. And he was like, by the time I looked up, 5 years had passed. And I was like, now I'm in everywhere. Mm-hmm. And that's what I keep reminding myself. It's like, yeah, I've only been here for 2.5 years. Like,
yeah, I mean, the problem with comedians, not the problem necessarily, but we all think like, okay, I'm here. Why am I not everywhere?
Yeah.
And then
somebody call the vice president of show business, because I am here.
You start to get pissed off and down on yourself because you're like, I've been here 2.5 years. Why am I not doing fucking 5 shows on a Friday night? It's like, bro, I've been here 15 years. I've been doing stand-up comedy almost 14 years. And it took me 10 years to get in most clubs.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Well, and it's one of those things too where...
So strap in, buddy. It's going to be a long road to Strip House.
It is one of those things too where you just... It's so bizarre because people are like, as a former athlete and someone who's hyper competitive, I'm like, I'm not begging for time.
Yeah.
Like that's in my head. I'm like, if you're just like in sports, if you're good enough, people will be like, oh, we've got to get them up.
Yeah.
But that's the problem with art is it's subjective, not objective.
Exactly.
So it's like, yeah, you might be funny, but so is this person for different reasons and that person for different reasons. And like I've done shows before and murdered.
Yeah.
And then done that same set the next night and bombed. And you're like, there's no fucking reason.
Wouldn't it be funny if sports were subjective and
not
objective?
My God, I'd be playing in the NFL right now.
I mean? It was just like a guy scores a touchdown and you're like, that wasn't a touchdown. It was like barely a field goal.
Take the points. Take the points.
Those points are made up. This made up system.
This is all fake. There's no judgment.
Funny. It'd be a funny idea.
Yeah, so like people are like, oh, well, did you message so-and-so? Did you message the booker? And I go, well, they know me. Like I've met them. Mm-hmm. And they go, yeah, but you have to message them.
You have to.
And then they're like, and then I'm like, yeah, well, I sent them a message. They never responded. They're like, then wait 2 weeks and message them again.
Follow up.
And I'm like, I don't want to do that.
I was just having a conversation with another comedian about this. And I was like, well, did you message the booker? And she said, yeah. And she was like, but she didn't respond to me. And I was like, well, message her again. And she's like, well, I can't. I'm like, dude, think about it. You have to think about it from their perspective.
Yeah.
You're one person. They're one person getting 100 messages a day from you and other people thinking they're one person.
And the 99 other people.
So then you think, oh, you're insulted and you're like, oh, I'm not, maybe not think I'm not funny enough, but whatever you think.
Oh,
like,
that's the first thought.
Exactly. But then you go in your head and then that's what happens. You start to get pissed off or sad or whatever. And it's like, you just have to look at it more from a business standpoint of like, oh, they didn't hit me back. They probably have 100 messages. Like,
let me try again.
I have a show next week. And I messaged the person, and they confirmed me, but then I messaged them again yesterday just to reconfirm where am I at on the show, whatever. They haven't messaged me back. I'm not like, oh, they fucking hate me. I'm like, oh, they're busy. I'm going to message them this weekend to make sure. You just have to just fucking...
Well, it's one of those things, too, where you forget that messages can get lost. Like, people can read it and be like, oh, I got to respond, and then they forget. I've done that with my own grandmother's birthday.
Yeah.
Where, like, my sister will text me and be like, don't forget it's Bubba's birthday, and I'll be like, I will not forget that, and then I put my phone down, and 2 days have passed. I'm like, fuck!
Yeah. You're like, I thought grandma was dead. But that's family, too. I do that with my mom. Every fucking year, I'm like, oh, shit, April 12th. It'll be April 13th. I'll be like, happy birthday. She's like, it was yesterday. But, like, that's different, I think.
But you know what I mean? Like, you can look at something on your phone and then just forget it's, like, just space it out.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask you, how did you even get into stand-up?
So, I am from outside Chicago. I moved to Chicago to pursue improv comedy and, like, wanted to go the potential SNL route.
Where did that come from?
I grew up on SNL, watching all that. Just being funny in my family, like always the funny kid growing up, as most of us say. And I was just like, okay, well, I'm actually going to pursue this.
Because that's one of the weird things I've noticed is, like for us, and the listeners are sick of me talking about this, but for us, it's our lives.
Yeah.
But like I run into people at the restaurant and I go, oh, I moved to New York for stand-up. And they go, oh, we love comedy. Our favorite comedian's like Robin Williams. And I go, oh, you don't know anything about, he died like 10 years ago. You don't know anything about comedy.
Yeah.
So for the mainstream, I always like to like kind of immerse them in the fact of like how people even find it.
Yeah.
Because it is so niche. So it's one of those things where you were just always the funny person and watching SNL, you're like, oh, I'll just do that.
Well, and comedy in general was such like a rock in my family, in my extended family. Like, you know, my uncles, cousins, everybody. we would go watch like fights on the weekends, and it would just be like 5 hours of just like my favorite time of the weekend of just everyone laughing, my dads and uncles shooting the shit, and I was just like, I learned comedy through that environment, and then I was just like, I never thought of anything else I've ever wanted to do.
That's awesome.
I've thought of stuff along the line that I'm like, I'm panicking, comedy's not paying, like what the fuck would I do?
Yeah.
But I've never ever wanted to do anything else.
That's so cool. Oh, I know exactly what you're saying.
So then I moved to Chicago. Got passed in a couple improv teams at Second City and Improv Olympic.
Damn, that's a big deal, man.
Yeah, it was great. But then I literally was walking down the street and got recruited to start modeling.
Tell that story.
Yeah, God. It's a fucking douche.
When we first met, you told me this story, and I was like, that's hilarious.
Well, I was also fighting at the time.
Yeah.
I had a couple fights in the cage, like amateur UFC stuff. I met the modeling agent. He brought me in, he was like...
But you literally met him just walking down the street.
He walked up to me, and I was just like, this is weird. Like, it's a big city. He was obviously a gay guy. I was just like, this fucking dude, he's just trying to fuck me. But he gave me his card. I looked it up. It was a legit agency, a big agency. And I was like, all right, fuck it. Let's see. I had no interest in ever modeling. I was never like, whoever has an interest in modeling.
The most vapid, vain people, you know who you are.
Yeah, but like women maybe growing up, but I don't think any dude in high school is like, I want to be a model. You know what I mean? Yeah. I did get most likely to walk the runway in high school.
Did you really?
Which is kind of crazy.
Coming full circle.
Yeah. So anyway, I went there, got recruited to model, and they brought me out to New York because they'll take models and send them to different markets as like a test to see if you work. I worked pretty well.
So they just flew you out?
They flew me out. They have a model house in Long Island City, which is 5 bedrooms. They put like 20 guys in there. It's wild.
It's these little details that I find fascinating. Yeah. Just as someone who's like, I just went to LA to do the store. No big deal. Hard flex.
Yeah, they have open mics there, guys.
You son of a bitch. Oh, and that's the clip. Fucking dickhead. They do have open mics there. But like it was my buddy who produces the show. And he started it in a bar. It became kind of an underground sensation. So the store was like, hey, you could do it at the store. But obviously, I have to fly myself out. I have to pay for a rental car. So it's always so cool to me when people are like, oh, yeah, like so-and-so, they just flew me out. Because I'm always like, what's that like? Yeah. Like, so they were just like, hey, you're going to get on a plane and go to our house in Long Island? And you're like, all right, cool.
Well, it was Long Island City. So it was right in Astoria, Queens. Yeah. I had no idea what the fuck I was doing. You walk in and you literally have to find a bed in one of these rooms, and people will be like,
sounds like the halfway house I lived at.
It's kind of like, I mean, in a sense, because there's no assigned anything. It's just you go into a bedroom and there's a twin bed on like each wall of the room.
Yeah.
Yeah. Was I at a halfway house? I don't think I was modeling. So you go in, you find a bed, and it's just every day you wake up, you go to castings all day, every day. And
this is something that the agency sets up for you?
Every day, yeah. Your agent will call you and be like, you have this tomorrow at this time, this time, and this time, and this time. And then you get bookings.
That's so cool.
But anyway, so I was there, and I wanted to continue comedy because I didn't give a shit about modeling. I like making money, and I like people giving me attention for being like attractive. That was great, but I didn't fucking care about modeling. So I was like, I can't do improv here. I'm stuck here doing this shit. I can't do improv because I don't have my improv team. So I just looked up comedy, and open mics came up, and I was like, okay, well, it's something like...
What year was this?
This was 2009.
Okay.
Yeah.
Look at that. Same year I started.
There you go, buddy. What's up? So, yeah, I went to an open mic. Not that I didn't ever want to do stand-up. Like, I did, like, pseudo stand-up in front of my family and, like, in front of my friends at high school and stuff.
Absolutely.
But I was more
Dad has a couple of drinks on a Saturday, and he's like, do the thing. Tell him the story about the thing.
Get in the corner. I'm like, Dad, put your pants on first. So
stop grabbing my dick, man.
That's weird, dude. It's not a microphone. So yeah, but I had this like big idea of comedy, not necessarily like where to do or how to do it, just comedy in general, right?
Yeah.
So then I was in New York doing modeling, and I was like, okay, open mic. Went to it, had a bunch of jokes written down, bombed my ass off, but I was like, fuck, this is cool. I could do this while I'm here. And then I kind of fell in love with it, moved back to Chicago after the 3 months, continued doing improv.
Did you book a lot in the 3 months?
I like
as far as
one
modeling?
job a month, like, but enough to survive.
Yeah.
These are like $5,000 jobs.
That's what I was going to ask.
Yeah.
Because that's another thing too that's interesting to me is like just the money that comes with some of this stuff.
Yeah.
Like we all have friends in this industry who they'll be like, oh yeah, I got an ad campaign for like this is comics.
Wild money.
And they'll be like, yeah, it was a 2-day shoot, but I was able to quit my job.
Yeah.
I'm like, dude, the day job the day job that you've been working your entire adult life.
The 401k.
The thing you've been trying to get out of since you stepped on a stage and held a microphone.
That's gone.
It's the thing you've been trying to get out of, and it's just gone now from 1 2-day shoot. And they're like, yeah. And you're like, what the fuck is happening?
Yeah, but then you talk to them in 6 months, and they're like, I blew all that money. I'm back in my job. Fuck. And now I'm lower.
I had to take a demotion to come back.
Exactly.
So then you go back to Chicago.
Then I go back to Chicago to my improv team. We kept doing shows and stuff, but then the improv theater, every like 6 months or so, they do like a restructuring.
Yeah.
So then our improv team got disbanded, and they put some people other places, and they're like, Zach, we saw that you were gone for a long time. Do you want to keep pursuing improv here? And I was like, this is a moment where I decide, am I staying in Chicago or do I move to New York?
Yeah.
So I was like, fuck it. I'm going to move to New York. I felt myself being pulled towards stand-up. I moved back into the model house. Was there for like 6 months. You're only supposed to stay for like 3.
So yeah, how did that work? So you do the like residency for 3 months, then you go back to Chicago. Did you call your agent and go, hey, I'm going back to the house?
No, I was like, I want to go back up to New York, and I had worked well there, so they were like, yeah, we'll send you back there to make more money.
Okay.
And I was doing okay. The second time I went out, I was doing like smaller jobs, like day rate stuff, which is not $5,000, but like I was working some.
Yeah.
But the castings I didn't really like anymore, and I was just like, I just didn't like it much, and I wanted to pursue more stand-up. So then I just found an apartment, and I've been here ever since.
Damn.
Yeah.
So then how did
I was going to say, I had the classic, like, I came out here $600. I didn't even fly back from Chicago. I, like, took an Amtrak train from Chicago to New York and, like, had the whole goodbye with my Chicago friends. I got high. I never smoked weed. I was freaking out on the Amtrak train.
So you got high before you got on the Amtrak?
Yeah, it was really stupid. I was like paranoid.
Tell that story.
Oh my God, dude. I never smoke weed.
So, okay. So this is, because you and I are similar in this fashion. I'm not, because I'm anxious. I'm depressed.
Oh yeah.
I am not a weed guy.
Yeah, I feel parts of my body. I don't want to feel too much.
I remember one time I got so high, I was just watching SpongeBob, scared. And it was like the middle of the day. It was summertime. I was in the dorms, surrounded by my friends, and I was just like, "This doesn't make any sense. He's under the water, but he's a sponge." And I was like freaking out. It was bad.
So off of weed?
Yeah, like a lot of weed.
Yeah, I don't get
GBs,
like,
gravity bongs.
Oh, I don't get scared. I get super paranoid.
That's the same thing.
No, I'm not paranoid. SpongeBob's gonna come fucking kill me.
So what happened? So you're about to leave. You're saying goodbye to everybody.
Yeah, it was the girl that I was hooking up with at the time and her friend group, which became my friend group.
Big weed heads?
They were potheads. She smoked sometimes. But yeah, we got super fucking high, and I was like, I got to go to the Amtrak train now. And then we get there, and I was just like, oh, God, am I a piece of shit? I can't afford a flight. Am I a loser? Like, fuck. Going into that whole weed. So you're just
spiraling.
Yeah, the whole weed, anxiety, paranoia thing. And I get on the fucking Amtrak train. And
how long is that train ride?
It's like 15 hours.
Oof.
Yeah, it's long. And there's a bunch of stops. And every time the train stopped, it stopped like 2 or 3 times within like the first 4 hours. And I was still super high. I got so paranoid someone was going to steal something from me. So I would just be up with like my hands next to me, like holding on to my valuables, 21 years old. But yeah, it sucked. But then I got to New York, and I knew the model house, and like I had my bearings in the city by that point, and I was just like, all right, well, fucking we're here. Let's go.
So when you got back to New York, I know you said you were doing day rate stuff and it wasn't as much money as before. Because you had the stand-up thing in mind, were you almost like parlaying it like, well, I have a place to stay, so I'll do the model stuff during the day and like try and do the castings and stuff, but I'm going to be doing stand-up all night? Yeah. Okay, so you knew you had a plan coming in.
My plan was to just milk as much as I could out of
That's
the
what
place
I was,
to stay.
Yeah.
Because after the 3 months, my agent kept being like, Zach, you got to move out of the house. You got to move out of the house. Like, we need room for guys that are coming in. And I'd be like, oh yeah, next week. I ended up staying for 6 months, and then
God, did that give you any sort of anxiety or anything like that? I mean,
it's a fucking modeling agency. I don't give a shit. I was like,
yeah,
whatever.
That's true. Yeah, fuck them. Yeah.
And then they were like,
what was the final straw? Did you actually just go out and find a place, or were they like, hey?
I started looking for a place, and then they were like, we're going to drop you if you don't leave the apartment. Like, drop me from their agency. Yeah. And I hated my agent anyway. He classic model story. He's like, oh, we should all like bring the boys over to the apartment. Like, weird, just weird shit. And I was like, I get creeped out by this guy. So I was like, okay, fine, I'll move out. And then I went to another agency, got a different agency, left that one. Because that was in the past.
It's one of those things where you can always, it's like trying to look for a job when you have a job.
Yeah.
Like finding a new agent when you have representation is a lot easier than being like, hey guys, guys, look at me. Book me.
But yeah, so then that hit the ground running.
Was the new agency for modeling?
It was, yeah. It was
okay.
All that stuff mostly was for modeling.
Okay.
I've had a few managers and agents for commercials, and I've never had like a specific stand-up agent, but I'm with an agency now that has like a stand-up department, like a host department, all that shit.
So do you do, for all those dates you have coming up, do you do all that booking, or do you have them?
Booking.
Okay.
Yeah.
God, you're just fucking grinding, man.
I mean, trying, man. You got to get out there. Like I said, you got to fucking get your own shit going.
Yeah.
You're just going to sit at home.
Well, that's what I love about the podcast is it's a tangible thing.
Exactly.
So it's one of those, like...
And to build an audience, too.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's one of those... Because I've had people come out to shows, and obviously with my dark sense of humor and storytelling and stuff like that, I've had people come out, and if they're like friends of mine who know me, they'll be like, that was so funny. Like, that's hilarious. But when they bring their significant others, they'd be like... I don't know. I was kind of like nervous. Like, you're kind of scary. And I go, oh, yeah, if you don't know me, I just come off as this big, like, hell yeah kind of guy. Yeah. But if you know me, you're like, oh, that's so not Brennan. That's funny.
Yeah. Okay.
So that's why the podcast has been so important because it's like, oh, I need people to get to know me. So in that way, when they come to see me, they're like, oh, that is funny because you look like a psycho.
It's an extension of you.
Yeah, exactly. Podcast. So when you decide to move out and get your own apartment, what do you do? Are you still doing modeling for work? Like, what's your main source of income?
I was doing modeling, and I had started doing catering work.
Okay.
Because there's all, your modeling agent will hook you up with catering companies and event staffing companies because they know most of the time you're not making that much money in modeling. Like 99% of models are barely making money to pay their rent.
Yeah.
Everyone has other jobs, right? So these models.
And also you want hot people.
Yeah.
At your events.
Oh yeah. Yeah, exactly. So there's this whole other industry of model staffing companies. I work with one still to this day, and it's models, actors, comedians, but it is like literally model staffing because all these events, they want hot people at their events serving their drinks and bringing them their fucking hors d'oeuvres. So I started doing that, and that's what carried me through to be able to continue to do stand-up. I had some like bartending, serving jobs throughout the years, but I mean, I'm sure you can understand, like the busier you get with stand-up, the more you're like, fuck, this is completely in the way of stand-up.
Yeah, and that's one of the things is like, I've talked to people before and they're like, oh, you have to quit the night job. It's like, yeah, but I can make my rent in a weekend. Like, it's so hard to... And it's also one of those things, too, where I've been lucky enough because I'm competitive and I'm pretty good at my job and I take it seriously. Mm-hmm. Like when I'm there to do the thing.
That's smart and that's a good way to be.
Yeah, like, and I'm not one of these people where I'm like, oh, I don't give a shit. Like if they fire me, they fire me. Like I've worked really hard to get to the level that I'm at.
And also, it should be stated, like it's fair to say, like where you work is a very high up.
Yeah,
restaurant.
exactly.
So it's not an easy job to get. It's not an easy job to keep.
Yeah.
So like that's a job that people work their entire life.
Yeah, it's a career serving job. Yeah. Where like, and I tell people all the time, like if I didn't care about, like if I didn't have stand up and I just did this job, I'd make like 150 to 200K a year.
And that's amazing money.
Yeah, especially, when you work 30 hours a week.
It's insane. And people are like, oh, you're a server. And they look down and it's like, motherfucker, I make more money than you do.
Well, and it's also one of those fun things too, where it's like, yeah, but I've been introduced to an entire world.
Yeah.
Like it's weird. I've said this a million times, but like back in Jacksonville, one of my regulars was Tony Khan, whose dad owns the Jacksonville Jaguars.
Oh, damn.
This guy's a billionaire, sweetest guy in the world. You could check out his episode of Tales from the Restaurant on Patreon.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
You got him on?
No. I talk about famous people behind their back, but I put it behind a paywall because I've waited on a lot of famous people and some of them are dicks. So I talk shit about them, but I do it through Patreon, so then they can't.
And that makes it okay?
Well,
if it's behind the paywall?
Well, then they're not going to hear it.
Oh, well, I thought you were saying it's like legally okay.
No. It's totally uncouth. But if I talk shit about like Jeff Ross, I don't want him to get back to him, so I put it behind a paywall.
Well, it'll get back to him.
Maybe.
Fucking paywall.
Hey, if people want to spend the $5.
You have this whole system like figured out.
People want to spend $5 and clip it and send it to him. That's fine.
That's so funny.
But like he's a billionaire, sweetest guy in the world. And then I have people who come in who make like, in Jacksonville, that's a lot, like 150K is a shit ton.
Yeah.
And they treat me like shit. And I go, one of my regulars could literally buy your company.
Yeah.
Like tomorrow. Like who the fuck do you think you are? So I love working in this industry because it's opened my eyes to so many, like who the cool, like real, like actual nice people are. And who are assholes.
Yeah, exactly.
Which helps me in this industry too because it's very easy to weed out those kind of people.
So many assholes in this
like when you came in, you're super sweet. Everything was great. We had a great time. And then I've had other people come in who people will see them on TV or on stage or something and be like, oh, they seem awesome. And then they come in and I'm like, no, they're dickheads. They're the biggest fucking dickheads.
I hate it.
And it's so I like that aspect of it. But to your point, And what I was saying is that the cool thing about my restaurant is because I've worked so hard to get to where I am, they're very cool about like, if I'm like, hey, I've got a weekend to show. So like, all right, we'll see you next week.
See, that's great.
Yeah.
That's great. And also like with the scheduling, you said you can make your rent in a weekend. It's like, well, then just don't book shows that weekend.
Yeah. That's what I do a lot of the times is like, obviously November, December, because we're so busy, I can't book anything. But then like February, it's a little iffy, but like the entire summer, I can do whatever I want. Exactly. Like the January, for the most part, I can do whatever. So it actually worked out really well. And it is one of those things where stand-up is my life. Podcasting, stand-up, this is my life. So like if Hannah Berner were to call me tomorrow and be like, hey, I'm doing the Beacon Theater. Yeah. Like I want you to open. Then I would call work and be like, hey, I can't make it. And they go, you have to be here. I'll be like, I'm not going to be there. Like, I'm sorry, but I'm not going to. Like, so there's levels.
And you're probably, I would assume, at a good enough level with management that if you did say that, they would just be like, okay, we understand. Rather than be like, all right, well, you're fucking fired.
Yeah, absolutely. You know? And it's because they know I'm not going to, like, if someone calls me and goes, hey, do you want to jump on my bar show on a Saturday? I'm going to be like, no, I'm all right. And they know that. At work, they know that.
$800.
Yeah.
You have one of your bar shows. I don't even have 8 people there, you fucking loser. I'll do it next week.
Can you book me next week? What are we doing next week? So for you, you get into stand-up and then the whole thing kind of, what was the turning point where you were just kind of like, oh, this is what I'm doing now? Like as far as... I don't know if
there was necessarily a turning point. I just...
Like when did you quit modeling? When did you like decide?
I kind of kept modeling. Like,
okay.
Because it's not necessarily... Like modeling, you don't have to be like, I'm in or out.
Yeah.
It's like if the agency keeps you on, you know, you might fall down the totem pole and like not get the calls from them as much. But if you call them... hey, you know, I'm still in New York, because they don't know. They're like, oh, this guy's in fucking San Francisco, this guy's in Manila, whatever. But like, you know, as long as I call them every once in a while, I'm like, hey, I'm still in New York. You'll get sent out on castings and stuff. But it started taking more of a back burner. And then I was just like, you know, I'm an in shape guy, but I don't sit with a natural six pack. Like, so in order for me to keep in the shape that they wanted me to be for the stuff they were sending me on, it was a constant fucking, I can't eat this, I can't eat that, I gotta hit the gym today, I can't go out drinking, I can't fucking, you know, have pizza or whatever. And it's just like, I got to a point where I was like, fuck that. I'm happier with not a six pack. Yeah. Being able to eat what I want, drink what I want, go to shows when I want, hang out with people, and not have to live this stupid ass life. So I would say maybe like late 20s, I started being like, fuck this.
Yeah. I do that. Now, I go to the gym a lot because I'm an addict, obviously. Mm-hmm. So I go to the gym 6 days a week, but I mean, I talk about it on stage. I do it just to maintain a big upper body. Yeah. So then I can hide this weird like belly that I have going on. Because if you see me just standing up, people are like, damn, that dude's big. Yeah. But then when I sit down, people are like, oh, you're like a frumpy piece of shit.
So I never thought that.
Well, that's the only reason I love the gym, obviously. But it's like, it's one of those things, to your point, where it's like, I'm not going to like, be ripped. Yeah. Like I do like being in a room and being like, oh, I'm the strongest person in here, which is most rooms. Yeah. But it's also like, I'm not like, if you saw me with my shirt off, you'd be like, ugh. Ugh.
Take your shirt off.
Do it.
Do it. Turn the lights down a little bit, please.
You sound like your agent.
So learn things.
On that point, was there a lot of like when you go to the house, the first time you go to the house in Long Island City, is there a lot of like partying and stuff?
I mean, think about it. No one has
a bunch of 20-year-olds, right?
It's a bunch of between 18 and the oldest guy that was there when I was there, I was 20. When I first went, I was 20. The oldest guy in the house was like 26, and we were all like, "Wow, what are you doing, dude? Get a job, like start a family." You know? Literally, we'd be like, "He's fucking old, man. Like, what do you?"
I know.
You know? But like...
Oh, yeah. There was guys, and when I was in college, there was guys like grad students and stuff who would still come to like the football parties. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, dude, you're 25. Like,
it's time to move on.
It's over.
Yeah, it's over.
It's over.
You gotta start looking for jobs.
As they say in Mighty Ducks 2, it's over, baby.
It's over. But it was like that, you know, like...
Yeah.
Ironically, though, he was booking a ton of shit. Like, he was one of those guys that had...
Watch out, young pups.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, he was like killing it. Like,
yeah.
All the athletic wear stuff, he was because he had the guy was just one of those dudes that's just naturally shredded.
I can't stand it.
And built, you know, played college football, like was a big motherfucker, but like model big. Yeah. Not like crazy, but just ripped, big, you know. And I was just like, you fucking piece of
shit. We used to have guys when I was on the team, they'd walk. I was in the gym every day because I played D1 football in Florida, so it's a big deal. Yeah. And I'd be like 5 a.m. workouts, like watching what I ate, like fucking, you know, every day it was a thing.
Job.
Yeah. There were dudes who would walk in, hungover, holding a bag of McDonald's, just shredded, throw on they wouldn't warm up or anything, just throw on their pads, go out and just torch everybody. And I'm like,
you're talking about black guys.
I was going to say athletically gifted, but yeah.
Well, same thing.
Tomato.
Same thing. I don't mean that in a bad way. I'm jealous. Okay, I'm jealous.
Okay, I'm very jealous.
I'm jealous. I don't want to talk bad.
I don't want to. Black people love me. I'm like one of their favorites.
Athletes ever.
They say, you know, who's a good guy? That Brennan guy. We love that Brennan guy. So in the house, when you get there, is it a party all the time?
I mean,
it has to be.
No one, unless you're working on a modeling job, you're just doing castings, and 5 days a week, promoters are taking all the models out. Because think about it. If you're a promoter, you want hot people at your table.
Yep.
And we're broke-ass models. We want to drink for free and be around hot-ass people at a club. So we would go out like 4 or 5 nights a week until fucking 4 or 5 in the morning and then get up at 8 and go to castings all day. And that was the life.
How does that work, though? Because, like, I know just from being an alcoholic and drinking a lot and stuff like that, like that's a big caloric intake to be like drinking all night. Are you guys like getting up super early and going to the gym to stay in shape?
Our lives were just castings, boozing, partying, doing drugs, and going to the gym.
That was the whole thing.
And mostly women, but I would see a lot of cigarette smoking, a lot of cocaine. But I feel like maybe not necessarily cocaine, but the cigarettes. I mean, the women would just smoke cigarettes all day to not eat.
That's how I picked up smoking.
Yeah, it'll curb your appetite.
When I was in rehab, the first time, I was eating all these candy from the vending machine, and I gained like 10 or 15 pounds in like 2 weeks. Oof. And I wasn't putting it together that it was from all the candy. I was like eating because when you stop drinking, your body reacts differently. For most people, it's a lack of sugar because there's so much sugar in alcohol that your body's like, yo, we need our sugar. Like, what the fuck's going on? Yeah. And a buddy of mine, heroin addict from Boston, was like, hey man, if you don't want to eat all that candy, you should start smoking.
And it
worked. I started smoking Newports, never touched the vending machine candy again. And I was just like,
that's a trade-off.
And so I understand the smoking thing, and obviously the cocaine thing was a big thing for me. Was that, because you hear about it a lot when people talk about the modeling world, let's discover the underbelly of the modeling world.
Everything's true. Everything you've heard is fucking true.
Was that a big thing, like just having cocaine all the time?
I would
just around, not you personally, but I'm saying.
No, I'm not going to say like at 10 a.m. I'm watching guys like just rip rails on the table. But yeah, drugs and alcohol are huge in the modeling world because you're partying all night and you're not getting much sleep, and then you're going to castings and you're working all day and you got to stay in shape or be skinny as a girl. You know, there's times where I would wake up at 8 and there would still be guys in the backyard fucking smoking cigarettes, doing lines. Like, it's a nonstop party.
Awesome.
I mean, maybe not anymore because this is now. I started when I was, I'm 36, so it's 16 years ago.
Yeah.
And I only lived in the model house from 20 to 21. So it could be completely different now. I don't know. I'm just saying back then, times change. I don't know if it's like.
Yeah, but you say times change, and I agree with you. Obviously they do. But in my experience, it's. Like, the world's a shitty place. Like, shitty stuff still and I say shitty because, it's a fun party, but it's not good for people. Like, it's not. Like, when I was in college and playing college football, like, we're getting our heads smashed in. Yeah. I had buddies that would drink before practice because they were like, oh, I hit harder. And then, like, we would go to parties, and then you'd wake up on, like, 4 or 5 hours of sleep, and you'd go out and you'd work out. But, like, people watch things like
that's crazy.
Any Given Sunday. And obviously that's an extreme hyperbolic take on it. But, like, we would go to parties and everyone would get drunk, and then there would be, like, girls there, and then, all of a sudden we're doing team building exercises where there's,
gangbangs.
Yeah. My way sounds nicer.
It does.
But that's and I'm not ashamed to say it, but, like, that's just the world that we were in. And in my head, I think as I get older, I'm like, oh, well, the world's not like that anymore. Like, everyone's rainbow. But then I'll go on, like, Reddit or Twitter, and I go, oh, no, the world's still fucking like that. Yeah. Like, people still do that.
Yeah. Well, I wanted to give that.
I understand.
I wanted to say that just to be like, that's what it was when I was there.
Yeah.
I don't want to say like, this is how modeling is today still.
Back in my day.
Like 16 years ago, there was lots of cocaine. There still is.
Do you remember the first time you saw it?
Cocaine?
Yeah.
I actually saw cocaine for the first time in my hometown, Rockford, Illinois. I was at a party.
How old are you?
17. I was senior year of high school. I went to this party. Upstairs, everyone's drinking, house party. We go downstairs, and it was like a completely different vibe. And there was just cocaine all over the table. And I remember...
Wait, Are these high school kids doing it?
I don't know if they're high school kids. I didn't know who these guys were.
Whose party was it?
Was it one of my buddies from my school?
Okay.
But packed, 100 people at this party, parents are out of town, whatever.
No, I don't know because I didn't get invited to those kind of parties. But
well, I would have invited you.
I was a fucking nerd, dude.
I would have invited you.
No, you would have been the guy bullying me.
That's true. Until you got those big thunder thighs, and I'd have been like, I'm going to leave him alone.
I didn't hit my growth spurt until I was a senior in high school, so I used to get the shit kicked. Yeah, man, where do you think all this stuff comes from? From having a fucking happy child?
That's true. Good point.
I used to get the shit kicked out of me, man. By my own teammates. And I was like, we're on the same team.
You love me. I don't love me. But yeah, so I went downstairs, table full of cocaine. I'll never forget this. I was like, what the fuck are you guys doing down here? Literally like a fucking
narco
dare commercial.
Yeah.
I swear to God,
what are you, a fucking knack?
I'm mad at myself for what I did. I literally swiped all the cocaine.
No!
Yeah. And then I got in a fight.
Oh, I did not see that coming.
Got in a fight, yeah. Because it was like 3 dudes at the table. They all got up. And
That's
I was with
so
my
expensive.
buddy. I know. It was a lot of cocaine, too. It was at least a couple $100 worth.
And you just...
Sure. And I was like, what the fuck are you doing? This is my friend's house. Get the fuck out of here. And the guy, he was like, what the fuck did you just do?
Oh, my God.
They all 3 stood up. I was with one of my buddies. I'm not proud of this, okay? I would have done that cocaine. But no, yeah, so me and my buddy got in a fight with him and his 2 buddies. It was
But it was your buddy's house. Why wasn't he like, yeah, get the fuck out of my house?
It wasn't that buddy, though.
Oh.
That guy was upstairs, like, doing whatever. And I was with my friend. We were like, oh, let's go check out the rest of the house.
And you just were like, what are you guys doing?
Literally, what are you doing? Like, what am I doing?
What are you doing?
What am I fucking doing, dude?
Oh, my God. So then that was your first exposure to it?
That was my first time. And I remember thinking, like, oh, God, this is disgusting. These guys are crackheads. Like,
yeah.
Literally, like, it just gave me that feeling of, like, ew, this is gross.
It's a gross
bad
feeling.
And nasty.
Where do you think that comes from?
The feeling of it?
Yeah.
Just because the extremes of the way people behave and what they do when they get addicted to drugs. Probably.
Well, and that was the thing. The reason I asked that is because I was a freshman in college.
When you first saw cocaine?
Yeah. And
And also did it?
No, had the same reaction to it.
Okay.
Where someone had it, and I think I've said this before on the program, but I saw it, and I grew up in like a nicer, probably you would say upper middle class area. Mm-hmm. I was right outside Daytona. So like when my parents got divorced, my mom lived in the ghetto of Daytona. Wow. So it was kind of like an odd couple situation. Yeah. 1 week we'd spend with her and you're, on Ridgewood Avenue, which is like a really bad, not fun weekend. Yeah. And then her and my ex-stepdad are going out to bars because he was an alcoholic. So he'd make her come with him and he'd stay out so I'm like in the ghetto, like until like looking for my mom, like calling her cell phone, like, hey, I'm kind of scared. Can you come home, please? And then the next week we'd be at my dad's house in a gated community and everything was like, oh, hunky dory.
That's too wild.
It was bananas. But when I got to college, I had this whole thing instilled through the DARE program and everything that like drugs were so bad. And I saw what it did to people when I would go visit my mom because you'd see just people wandering on around on the streets. Zombies. And it was not, zombies. It wasn't good. And so I saw it. And I was disgusted. Yeah. I was like, but I was also like, I could, like, it's something you see in movies. It's like I could reach out and just touch it.
Oh, that's an interesting thought.
Because I'd never seen it in real life. It's like the first time I saw a gun where you're like,
I was gonna say it's like seeing a celebrity.
Oh yeah, that too. Yeah. Take a picture. But it was one of those things where I was like, this is gross. And they were like, do you want some? And at the time, I went to college to play football, and I was like, I'm an athlete. I don't do. And little did I know, everyone's doing fucking drugs and getting crazy. But it was insane. I had the same exact reaction you did, where I was like, gross.
And did you wipe it off the table?
No, she had it in a baggie, and I was just like, ugh.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know why I thought that. I just remember feeling like in my friend's house, not this kind of shit. I'd do that and then go upstairs.
There's a sheriff in town. Did you tell your friend? Were you like, hey?
Well, I did because he came downstairs.
Did you get the shit kicked out of you? What happened with the fight?
No, I was fighting.
Oh, yeah, I forgot. I'm sorry. Yeah.
So I was like a trained fighter.
So you were just mopping people.
Yeah, I was just beating up a bunch of cokeheads.
I forgot you're a trained fighter. Yeah, so they're like, what the fuck are you doing? You're like, whatever I want. Yeah. How about that? How's that sound?
It all happens so
Talking
fast.
in the microphone, huh?
Yeah. Check 1, 2. But yeah, then everyone, because all of us heard us fighting, they came downstairs. Those guys got kicked out, and then we just went back to partying.
Okay, so was your friend happy? Was he like, oh, thank you for getting these fucking cokeheads out
I
of
just
here?
told him what happened. And he was just like, oh, man, I don't know those motherfuckers. Like, whatever, they're gone.
Get them out of here.
That was it.
So when did the fighting thing, have you been in a lot of fights?
Yeah, street fights, yeah, I've been fucking.
Really? I figured as a trained
over.
fighter, it'd be one of those things where you try to avoid it.
I do try to avoid it. And you can, this is going to sound made up. It's going to completely sound made up. And you can ask people that know me. Not so much anymore, but maybe this is the way I was in my 20s too. But like, a lot of fights would come to me.
Yeah.
You know, and maybe it is because like it would be a situation of like someone bumps into you and you could just be like, oh, whatever. And I would be like, hey, man, like, watch out. And that's how shit would start.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, well over 100 fights.
Because I'm very much whatever.
Yeah, I mean,
like when somebody bumps me, I'm like,
I now more because, you know, I'm fucking in my mid 30s. It's like, all right, I'm like, okay, let's not. I don't want to break something.
Do you still train?
No, I haven't trained in a while. I got like my knees hurt and my fucking.
But it's still one of those things where like if you go against, that's like with comedy.
Yeah.
Like people are like, oh, I can do that. And it's like, all right, come on stage.
Yeah.
And then they like eat a dick. And you're like, yeah, you don't know what you're doing. I'm sure it's the same thing with fighting where it's like if you win against someone who has no formal training. You're
I
just
have
like,
a good shot.
Yeah, like this is stupid. Like what are we doing?
But then if I go against someone that's my size that's regularly training, I get my ass kicked.
Yeah.
You know?
How did you, God, I find that so fascinating because I've been in a lot of fights, obviously with the jail time and everything. Mm-hmm. And it's just like, I try to do the crazy guy approach. This is a bit I have on stage, but one time I put my head through a guy's car window because he was flirting with my sister.
Holy shit.
And he was like, fuck you, Frosted Flake, and rolled up his window. And I went, I can't hear you. And I shattered his car window with my forehead. But then him and all his buddies got out. And this is what I don't tell this in the bit, but him and all his friends get out. And I try to do like, oh, I'll just play crazy.
Yeah.
And then because I can't fight. So I was like punching myself in the face. And I was like, I'll fucking kill you. But then they called my bluff. And I got the shit kicked
like,
out of
let's
me.
beat the shit out of this.
Yeah, they were like, fuck this guy.
Fuck this crazy guy. Let's fuck him up, dude.
And then they kicked the shit out of me. And I was crawling on my hands and knees into the bar where my buddy was because he was hanging out with a bunch of his friends who happened to be like bouncers and fighters. And I like whip open the window and I just go, help. And then they all rushed out and beat the shit out of the guys and kicked them out. But I was like all bloodied and bruised and like fucked up.
Shit kicked out of you.
Yeah. And so I say that because like I've always tried to avoid fights because I've been in a lot of fights, but I can't fight. And sometimes you get lucky.
Yeah.
Like I'll form tackle someone to the ground, knocks the wind out of them, and I'm like, oh, I win.
Yeah, yeah.
Like you can't do, like you're done. And then a lot of times I just get beat up. So for you, in those situations of fights coming to you, you obviously just because you have the training, you're never like, I'm assuming you don't back down. You're not like, oh, my bad, man. I'm sure you're just like, if you really want to do this, we can go, but you don't want to do this.
I will say what I was instilled in me when I was fighting was like, you know, my coach told me, he was like, Zach, you know, I'm not like the biggest guy in the world, but I'm a bigger guy. And they're like, you as you start getting older and going to bars and stuff and going to all these parties, like people are going to fuck with you sometimes.
Yeah, that happens to me too. Yeah.
Exactly. And it's like, how you handle that is what's going to determine the outcome. If you give them an outcome, like an option to leave, then don't do anything. But if it comes down to it and they don't let you leave the situation, you or them, then you got to know how to defend yourself.
Yeah.
So it would be like situations where I'd be at a bar and someone would be, hey, man, can you like watch out? They're like, what, motherfucker? And I'm like, I just said watch out. And they're like, yeah, okay, bitch. And you're like, yeah, all right, I'm a bitch. Go ahead, man, whatever. But if they're like, yeah, bitch, now I'm going to fuck you up, then it's like, well, now I'm going to fight you.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, because you can get in those situations, and it happens to us. I mean, I've been sober for a long time, but it does happen to us as comics because, like, you say something on stage or you like call somebody out and you're like just having fun, and then you get off stage and they're like, hey, you're not so funny now, motherfucker. And it's like, dude. And I've been in those because I'm a bigger guy, and a lot of times they're drunk and I'm not. Yeah. So it's very much like I've been in enough fights to where I have my bearings at least. Yeah, yeah. Like I've done enough open mics to where I could, like going back to our analogy, where I can like get on stage and feel a little comfortable.
Yeah.
It's the same kind of thing where it's like I've been in enough fights where I'm not, like it's not that fight or flight response. Yeah. It's very like calculated. But it's also like if someone backs you into a corner, like literally like
you have to fight.
Like, because, you know, we try to stay out of the way as comics, and if you're like up against the wall and then someone gets in your face, it's like, well, now I just gotta, now this is gonna, and in New York it happens all the time too, on the subway, people asking for money and you're like, no man, sorry, and then they like get in your face and start screaming. It's like, all right, well now I'm gonna headbutt you right in the bridge of your nose so your eyes start to water and then you can't see anything, and then I'm just gonna have to kick the shit out of you.
Exactly.
But I just find that fast because you have this ability.
Yeah.
Like how people talk to us about comedy is like how I'm talking to you about fighting.
Yeah,
it's
and
like,
it's still to a certain extent like riding a bike. You know what I mean? Like I still know how to do a triangle choke and like
just
a fucking heel hold and like punch it and stuff. But like, you know, I would, if I went into a class situation, I would be very rusty.
Yeah.
Technically.
Yeah. From just,
but it's like I said, riding a bike. It's there, but I would have to relearn a lot of shit to be technical.
God, I want to just start going out with you.
It's fun. I mean,
get into fights.
No, don't do that. I don't want to do that.
Like we have some comics back home in Jacksonville who would say the most outlandish shit on stage, and they're tiny. And I go, you're only saying this because me and my best friend Marcus Crespo I'm like, because we're in the back of the room.
Yeah.
So someone rushes the stage, we're going to protect you. Yeah. I'm like, you wouldn't say this out on you wouldn't say this ever.
Yeah.
If him and I weren't here, you wouldn't say this.
Yeah, I had a friend that would do that early on in comedy because he knew I was a fighter, and he was a littler guy. And we would literally just go to bars, and he would just be like, what, motherfucker? And then be like,
hey, Zach, take care of this.
Literally, he'd be like, Zach, fuck this guy up.
Did you ever fuck those guys up?
I mean, if they wouldn't back down, but I'd be like, come on, man. Like, what do we do? I'm not going to just fight for you.
You're his goon.
I know. I'm like, dude, are we friends, or am I just beating people up for you?
So I want to talk about it. When you get into stand-up and you're doing that, obviously because you're doing the modeling thing on top of it, were you ever like getting drunk and going on stage and stuff? Because this is something I find fascinating.
No. I mean, I've only been on stage drunker than I should have been one time, and then another time I canceled because I was too drunk before my show.
How did tell that story?
I mean, it was a produced show, so luckily it didn't like interfere with a club booking situation.
Yeah.
So it was just a produced show. I went to brunch for a friend's birthday, and I just was having a great time and not really monitoring my alcohol intake.
So, but was it one of those things where when you go to brunch, you're like, I have a show tonight, but I can still, I'll have a couple of drinks.
Yeah, it was unlimited Aperol spritzes, and I love an Aperol spritz.
Who doesn't love an Aperol spritz?
So good, dude. And I was like, okay, well, I'm gonna have a couple. There were some hot girls around. I'm talking to the girls. I'm like making jokes, having feeling the day. And I just let it get away from me. People are putting shots around. I was like, not even thinking about it, like acting like I'm out partying, and then like an hour before the show rolls around, I'm like, fuck. I hate you. I was like, I'm good. I'm good enough to go out tonight, but I'm not good enough to perform tonight. I need a cocaine or Adderall.
Was that a text you had to send? No, not the cocaine or Adderall. Was it like a hey?
No, I called him so he knew I wasn't lying.
Yeah.
And I was like, hey man, and he was like, are you fucking drunk? And I was like, I'm fucking wasted, man. I was like, I can't do this show tonight. He was mad, but then the next time I saw him, he was actually like, hey, man, I really appreciate you, like, being honest and canceling the show because it would have been way more embarrassing and worse for the show overall if he would have came and performed hammered.
Yeah. That's how I spent the first, 10 years of doing comedy.
Really?
Maybe, the first 7.
Just drunk.
Yeah, because I did my first open mic in 2009 after I stopped playing football. And as soon as I stopped playing football, I was like, oh, no, I can just party all the time.
Yeah.
So I was just drinking constantly. And then it wasn't until 2015 or 13 when I went to rehab. So from 13 to 15, I was sober, doing stand-up, sober-ish, doing stand-up. And then I fell off the wagon in 15, and I was like, I'm not going to touch a stage drunk again. That's not who I am. So I just didn't do stand-up for 3 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
Because you were like, I want to drink instead.
Well, yeah. And that was the thing was when I used to get drunk on stage, it was a fucking mess, dude. I'd do an Arnold Schwarzenegger impression. People would be lighting me and I'd be like, come fucking get me off the stage. How about that?
Oh, no.
It was a disaster.
It's good you're not doing that in New York, man.
Yeah.
That shit would get around fast.
Dude, I often think about what my career would be like if I fell off the wagon in New York. Because I'm the kind of drunk where I mostly would drink in my room by myself. But there would be times where I'd show up to the cellar and I know enough people there through working at the restaurant and being around and being in it as long as I have, where I would go up to the comics table and be like, the fuck, guys? And sit down and be like, who the fuck's going to move me?
No. That would be a career. It would be a career-ending move. You'd have to move cities to be able to do stand-up.
I would have to go to LA.
You'd have to go somewhere, dude. You have to go to fucking Barcelona to do stand-up, dude. You wouldn't be able to do stand-up.
Imagine if I just sat next to her and I was like, what the fuck will you book me?
When's my audition, bitch? They'd be like, all right. First of all, every bouncer in the place would just drag you out.
I know, they're so big.
Yeah, they would get you immediately. But yeah, no.
I should go with you.
No, fuck that.
Be like, Zach, handle these motherfuckers.
I'm trying to get past there. I'm not fucking around with that bullshit. But yeah, but that's listen, I'll go if it's a weekend and I have 3-4 shows.
Yeah, you have a drink or two.
By the 4th show, I've had a few drinks, but I'm in no way drunk at all.
Yeah.
That's fine to me.
What was you said there was one time that you drank too much you were too drunk on stage. Do you remember that?
Yeah, it was, I just knew when I was on stage.
It hits you, and you're like, fuck.
Yeah, because once you're on stage in front of the audience and the lights are on you, and you're like, ah, shit. And my friend told me afterwards, so he was there with me, and he goes, dude, you were fucking drunk, weren't you? And I was like, no. And he's like, you're still? I was like, yeah. He was like, I could tell.
That's immediately after, and you're like, yeah.
Yeah, I'm like, no, I'm sobered up 10 minutes later. But no, he was like, he was nice about it. He was like, I don't think the audience could tell, but I know you're fucking drunk. He goes, I know the way your eyes look when you're drunk, and you get those like.
Do you have people in your life like that? I have. My mom and my ex-fiance were like that, where I could do one shot and they'd be like, "You're drinking," and I'm like, "How the fuck?"
Yeah,
I was like, I show up to work drunk and no one knows.
Yeah,
but I was like,
my mom, my sister, and I would have girlfriends that would be like, when you get to a certain level of drunk, your eyes you're looking through things.
Yeah, you just glaze over.
Yeah, you're not looking at anything. You're just your eyes are open but shut. You know what I mean? You have open and closed eyes.
Open, closed eyes. And that's the name of the episode.
There you go. Got it.
I wanted to ask you, what was the prom story I wanted to ask you about? And then Danny's apartment.
Okay, cool. Yeah. So the prom story is, I've told the story so many times to so many. I love it that it happened, but it was so embarrassing when it happened. So after prom, I live in Rockford, Illinois. Up north is Kalahari Resort, like a water park resort.
Yeah.
In Wisconsin. So all of our parents, paid for us to stay there for 2 nights.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, it's like a prom thing. So we all went with our prom dates. The girl
was prom date someone you've been dating, or
no? It was just one at the time. What I thought was one of the hottest girls in high school. So
you were attractive in high school, obviously.
Yeah,
most likely to walk.
Yeah. And I played football and basketball and stuff. So
what position did you play in football?
Middle linebacker.
Yeah, you did. You fucking Christmas morning and Santa's coming down the chimney.
Here we go.
See, so you have that anger in you. Yeah, you fought. Yeah. You played middle linebacker.
Yeah.
Don't let this veneer fool you, everybody.
I'm a nice guy. Hit me up in the DMs at Zach McGovern.
You've killed somebody.
There's a lot of dead people. No, so I asked this girl to be my prom date, who was very pretty, awesome girl. And then this other girl who was like the hottest girl I've ever seen was like, oh, I would have went with you. So I asked her. She says yes. We go to prom. Next day, we go up to the resort. Night comes around. I'm like trying to put the moves on the girl. And it's very evident.
Your date girl or the other girl?
My prom date.
Yeah, okay.
The other girl was there with her new date.
Got it.
It's all like the people that were on prom and home and all that bullshit. Like there's like
the hot people. Yeah.
Yeah, there's like 20 people.
I've seen
there.
movies.
Yeah, it's that. There's like 20 people there. And it's becoming very evident to me that my date doesn't want anything to do with me beyond just being my prom date.
Oh, that sucks.
Wouldn't even kiss me. Nothing. So I was like annoyed. And then my one friend was like, dude, let's go into town. And I was like, yeah, fuck it. There's nothing here. So nothing here except a giant resort. You know what I mean? And we all had booze and shit. So we go into town, we go to the bowling alley, and it's like a small town. It's like one of those the main street is one lane each way.
Oh, yeah,
and little buildings.
Like an old school Main Street kind of a thing?
Literally that, right? And it's like 10 minutes outside the resort. So we go, there's like 10 of us. People we didn't even know. Like my friend was just drunk and brought a couple kids with us. Kids our age, not kids. And we go to the bowling alley.
And also, you're obviously the most popular kids in high school. So you could just walk through the halls and be like, you.
People came.
And they'd be like, yeah. Am I anointed? I'm being anointed.
Bring him. Come on, kid. So then we go bowling, and there's this couple next to us, and they were like, oh, what are you guys? Because we still had our fucking nice clothes on. Because we wore it up there the next day. Because we wanted people to know, right?
Yeah.
So then they're like, oh, it's your prom. And we're like, yeah, we're just trying to get some drinks. And the guy's like, we'll buy you beer. So they buy us a couple pitchers of beer. We bowl.
Those guys, that couple, true MVPs.
No shit, right? I was like, these people are amazing. So they leave. Now it's just us. We had to pay the bill. And my friend's like, dude, let's just run out. And I'm like, no, man, come on. Like, this is a small town. Like, no, we're obvious. We're in fucking suits.
Yeah.
We're 10 kids or 5 or whatever kids in suits. And before I could even talk him out of it, he just takes off out the door. And then everyone follows him. And I'm the last fucking one. And I'm like, well, I'm not paying this fucking bill. So then I run out.
Oh, God.
And right across the street is a fucking police station.
Of course.
So, and there's like cops outside and they see us running. So they just naturally start taking off after us. And the person comes out and he's like, they stole bowling, whatever. So we're all running around, running different ways, this and that. And I'm running. I hide behind a dumpster behind a fucking bank. Cops are literally coming towards me. So I start running. I take a right down the street. My other friend takes the left into a neighborhood. I take the right. It's down a fucking dead end alley.
Oh, no.
And all of a sudden I hear, stop.
And the cops know it's a dead end alley.
Yeah. So they're like, stop. You're not stopping. I'm like, I'm not fucking stopping. I'm like, I'll figure something out. It's a fucking dead end. Just stop, dude. But I'm drunk and I'm hopped up on adrenaline. And all of a sudden I just feel
Yeah.
I got the fucking shit tasered out of me.
I've felt that feeling before.
The gun?
It feels like a bee sting.
A bee
clipping
sting
into you, and then you hear.
Yeah,
and you go. Ah!
Yeah, and that part feels like you're getting plugged into a fucking wall.
Yeah.
Like I was like.
When the needle hits you, though, I always tell people it feels like you got stung by a bee.
Yeah.
When the needle, because it's got little prongs on
And
it.
it goes in and opens.
Yeah, when they hit you, you're like, what the fuck? And then you hear click, 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 and you go, oh my God.
Yeah, you almost hear it before you feel it.
You definitely hear it before you feel it.
So I got fucking tasered. They take me to jail. Like my friends, I ruined the whole weekend. Nothing. My parents have to come up and
Party's
get me.
over, guys. That got tasered.
Oh, no. They still party.
Oh, really?
I ruined my weekend.
What? So your parents have to come up and get
They had
you?
to come all the way up and get me.
How far was it from where you live?
3 hours.
Damn.
Yeah, so my mom was so pissed, which I thought would be my dad. My mom was so pissed. My dad was just like,
Shit happens.
ruined your prom weekend, dipshit, didn't you?
Well, and also you got tased.
I got tased.
So I'm sure from your dad's perspective, he's like, yeah, he got fucking tased. I'm sure that's punishment.
That's literally what he said to my mom. He's
Yeah.
like, he learned his lesson. He got tased.
And it ruined his weekend.
Yeah. So then the funniest part of the story to me is we were at a Subway getting lunch on the way home, and there's 2 fucking sheriffs behind us. And I have these 2 blood spots on my shirt from getting tased.
Yeah, and they know.
And it's my undershirt from my suit jacket, but it was like blood. And I turn around and I glance at the one guy, and he just goes, looks like you had a fun night. My dad just goes, ha ha ha! Fucking laughs at me in front of the cops.
Oh, yeah, those tasers don't mess around.
Yeah. That's the only time I've ever been tasered.
Yeah, I've only gotten it once too. But
yeah. In a police situation?
Yeah, long story short, I was at Raymond James Stadium. I took some time off in between senior year of high school and freshman year of college. And we went to go watch a USF game. This is before I played college football. And all my friends were like, this is when USF was playing Rutgers, when Rutgers was undefeated with Ray Rice and all those guys. Mm-hmm. And my friends were like, oh, we're going to rush the field. No matter win or lose, we're going to rush the field because it was a really close game. And they ended up losing in like the fourth quarter. But I still jumped 10-foot drop in Raymond James Stadium and started running. And then I felt the sting, and then I hear the click, and I fall.
Oh, they just hit you. They didn't even say anything.
Yeah. The cop, because I just jumped. And so afterwards, my friends like run down with their parents, and they were like, "Oh my God, we were just messing with him. We didn't think he was going to do it, but I'd do anything for attention."
Yeah.
I mean, you could YouTube right now. Brennan Staples himself. Like, I'll do anything for attention.
That's hilarious.
And the cop turned to me. He takes it all out. And my buddy's dad was there. He was the one who got us the tickets. And the cop, he goes, I have responsibility for him. We're so sorry. We never thought he would do that. Like, we were messing with him.
Yeah.
We're so sorry. And the cop turns to me and goes, I only tased you because you're a big guy and you were moving pretty quick. So you can get on out of here. And I was like, well, that's a badge of honor. Like, that's pretty cool.
You didn't try to tackle me?
No, he was just like, fuck this. Boop.
That's hilarious.
What happened with Danny?
To the drug story.
Yeah.
So I was at his apartment. I hadn't done mushrooms in a long time. So we didn't have.
When was this? Was this more recently, or was this?
This is probably going on 8 years ago, maybe.
Okay.
Long time ago. So we're at his apartment. We got synthetic mushrooms because I couldn't find anybody that had mushrooms. So we get mushrooms in this fucking pill.
Yeah.
We're at his apartment.
Is that a thing?
I would say no. Don't fucking do it. Tell you that much. If you relapse again, don't ever do synthetic mushrooms.
We're foreshadowing.
Yeah, don't. We're going to do mushrooms together. So we get the synthetic mushrooms. We're at my friend's apartment. Another friend was there with his, at the time, girlfriend. Mm-hmm. And they were like, we're not doing it. So
we're not doing
No,
this.
So we do it. It starts to hit us. I look at Danny. He's curled up in a ball in his chair. His face is beet red. And I'm like, oh, shit. Are these the drugs or is he feeling it? And then I start to feel the room like expand out. And I'm like, oh, okay, I'm feeling the mushrooms. Okay, this is going to be fun. And then I go, dude, I think I'm feeling it. The room is huge. And the guy who wasn't doing it looks at me and goes, dude, you're an idiot. And I was on mushrooms, and that just, it struck the core of my soul to hear you're an idiot.
Oh, no.
So I started full on panicking, and then the room got really small.
Oh, no.
And I looked at Danny, and I was like, he's dying. I'm about to die. I can't be in this. So I just like walked. I was like, I have to go outside. And I like made my way outside down the 4 flights of stairs. And it was the middle of summer. As soon as I opened the door, I swear to God, I just heard birds chirping. I heard people laughing. I felt the sun on my body. And I went from complete panic to like, oh, this is what's good about mushrooms. And I just felt like, oh, this is really nice. So then I was like, okay, I'm outside. I might as well do something. So I walked to a deli.
That's always a great idea.
Yeah, well, you could be shroomed down. But I felt so good.
Yeah.
Like nothing could go wrong. So I was like, oh, let me go like do something. I walked down the street to a deli to get like some Gatorade. I go in the deli. I get the Gatorade. I walk up to the counter. I put it on the counter. And the guy tells me how much it is. And I go, okay. And then don't do anything. And then he's like, $2.50. And I'm like, okay. Still, I don't know. And then I realize, I know what he's saying, but I realize I don't know how to pay this guy. I don't know how to pay him. I swear to God, I didn't know where my money was. I didn't even know how to use money. So then he goes, $2.50 or you leave. And I'm like, I don't know. And he goes, money. And I was like, oh. So then I just pull out my wallet, set it on the counter, and I was like, can you do it for me? I don't know how to do it. He pays, gives me the money back.
Oh, he did it for you?
Took my money, yeah. He probably charged me way too much. Takes the money, gives it back to me. Like, I have my wallet in my one hand, the Gatorade in another hand. And instead of leaving, I just backed up to the wall and stood there and watched like 4 or 5 people pay. And just watched them go by. And then the guys, you have to leave my store now. So then I walked outside, made my way back. We had a great day. But there was that moment of like, holy shit. I don't know what the fuck I'm doing.
That's me watching SpongeBob.
Literally, that was my moment.
I was like, what's happening?
Except yours was weed. Mine was fucking mushrooms.
Yeah, that's synthetic mushrooms.
Synthetic. There had to be something else in there, dude.
Yeah, it had to be.
I mean, I did not know how to pay the man.
That's hilarious.
Didn't know what to do. Yeah.
Dude, this was so much fun.
Yeah, dude. Thank you for having me, man.
Of course. You got to come back on.
Yeah, I would love to.
Plug everything one more time. Social media, the whole deal.
At Zach McGovern on Instagram, at Zach_McGovern on TikTok, Zach McGovern on YouTube, soon to be website, check back 2026, like I said. You going to plug the dates or in the thing? Or should I do
it's going to all be in the show notes.
Do I do it again? Oh, it'll be in the show notes. It's fine.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Check the show notes.
Check the show notes. Key West this weekend. Miami, Fort Lauderdale, Boca next weekend at Sad Man Comedy Cafe. Check it out. New spot. Amazing people. Then Vancouver, then LA, then Chicago, then back to New York.
Boom. Thank you, everybody, so much for listening. We'll talk to you all next week. Oh, I almost forgot to plug my stuff. At Brennan T Comedy on all social media, BrennanTComedy.com. No dates coming up.
He's got a website, though.
I do have a website. Check out the One Man Show. I'm very proud of it. YouTube.com/@BrennanTassif.
I mean, I don't know why you
at Brennan T Comedy. I don't know. You'll find it. It'll be in the show notes. Get your X Drinking Buddy merch, and we'll talk to you all next week.
Woo! Thanks, guys.
Oh,
got it.
That was fun, dude.